Starting over at 25 years old, I've asked myself this very question, though I was 27 at the time, 26, 27, just coming out of a huge change in my life. But how do you rebuild your life if you're in your mid 20s, going into your 30s, and you're not really sure what's going on? You're in a rut, you're stuck, and you're looking for advice. You've come to the right place because this is going to be the second episode in the series where I call Reddit to real life, where I just take um, a Reddit post on a specific thread, mostly self development, where people are seeking advice on specific issues as it pertains to my experience. And I just walk through and try to help because there's a lot of you guys out there that are experiencing a similar circumstances, obstacles that you're trying to overcome. That if you're like me, in those circumstances, certainly wish that I had someone to provide me some sort of mentorship or someone who had experience in these obstacles and have overcome them. Certainly would have helped me get out of those ruts a lot quicker. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Josh Gothier. I'm a certified health coach. I've been posting content for the last couple of years, relatively consistently, getting back to it in 2026 after went through a little bit of a corkscrew in 2025. And my goal is here just to help one person overcome challenges that they experience in life so that they can finally step into the person they've been dreaming about or they've been trying to become. So today's video, we're talking about a Reddit post, and I'm not going to call these individuals out specifically, though obviously their name has a handle, so it's probably not the real name anyways. Nonetheless, today's topic is starting over at 25 after wasting years. How did you rebuild your life? I'll read a little bit of the context of this here. So it says, "Hey everyone, I'm 25, feel like I've wasted the last 7 years of my life. No degree I'm proud of, no career, lost a relationship that really mattered, ended up with debts, and right now I don't even know where to begin. Been there before? Let me know in the comments if you guys have been there before. I don't want to stay stuck in regret anymore. I want to rebuild, and I'm struggling with where and how to start. For those who have been through something similar, how did you start after losing time, relationships, and or direction? What small steps made the biggest difference in the early days? If you were 25 again and starting from scratch, what would you do differently? Any input, advice, or even your own stories would mean a lot. Thanks for reading." First of all, if you guys have gone to Reddit or you've been asking yourselves a similar question, I would say you're on the right track because it does take a lot to not only post something like this and be very vulnerable. I'll say on the internet, you probably, it can go 50-50. You might get people that are very sarcastic about their replies, or they might say some pretty, ridiculous stuff. There's also a lot of people that are out there willing to help. And in my case, I've certainly got a lot of flack for like, oh, you're just another wannabe, uh, grifter or like personal development guru. I'm none of those things. Honestly, as I mentioned early on, I wish there would have been someone there who had shared their experiences. And maybe there were, I just wasn't aware of it, but certainly would have been very helpful for me to be able to get out of that period in my life where I was just struggling mightily with what I was going to do. And I honestly just lacked direction. I didn't know where to go, as this person stated. And so it would have been helpful to have someone to outline their experience. And then, as I always say, you don't take all the things I say, to the most granular level and you say, oh, well, this didn't work. Like, my whole goal is for me to share my experiences. You want to try them? Great. They might work for you. They might not. And that means perfect. Now you know ways that you either are going to work for you or they don't, or they won't work for you. That's pretty much how I've been able to get to this point in my life. And, I could throw up some receipts and stuff like that. Basically, I've started my professional career around 18, 19 years old, left my house, living with my father. I was making less than $15,000 a year. Didn't go to college right away, didn't really do great in high school, and finally started to take steps to just pursue some of these things that I've always been pursuing, my dreams, my passions, my ambitions. And so I'm going to outline some of that stuff here, and like I said, if you like them, great. If you don't, keep scrolling. So we'll start with the first one. How did you start over? And so for me, in my early 20s, into my mid 20s, even into my early 30s, I felt like I started over a lot. And it wasn't by design. It wasn't because I was trying to just, reinvent the wheel every time I was experiencing something. It just sort of happened that way. because I always felt like if I wasn't in this like fight or flight mode, then I wasn't doing it the right way, if that makes sense. Like, I always felt like I needed to be in the fire to like have the motivation to continue to strive and grind, as everyone says, grind out your passions while you're working, while you're going to school, whatever it is. So for whatever reason, I always felt like I needed to be like, I always needed my back against the wall. Like, oh, if I'm not back up against the wall, then I kind of get lax on myself and I have nothing to strive for. And really what that did to me was kept me on the very low totem pole for a very long time, because I was in and out of depression all the way up until, quite honestly, the last 3 or 4 years. And every circumstance brought me to my newest low. And so probably for a good 15 years, I had been in and out of depression and always just felt like, okay, here I am now. I need to figure out how to dig myself out. And like I mentioned, every time I was a little bit lower, and it took me a little bit longer to get drug out of that hole. So yeah, I didn't really start over per se. I guess I never, I'll put it like this, I guess I never really started. And what I mean by that is, mean like I never really stepped into the person that I was trying to become. I mentioned this in my last video. It's not necessarily fake it till you make it. You're actively putting yourself into the shoes of the person you're trying to become. And I neglected that for a very long time. Not really sure why. I think fear had a lot to do with it. I was maybe more afraid of being successful than the comfort of being where I was, which wasn't successful, because it was like the story, it was like the story I could tell at the time of why I'm not where I need to be at. And I blamed a lot of people, um, everyone except who I really needed to blame, and that was myself. And if you're in that scenario right now and you're looking around and you say, well, my father, my mother, the way I grew up, those things all might be true. But at the end of the day, if you're outside of your parents' house, if you don't live with anyone, or even if you do, maybe have a roommate or something like that, regardless, if you're a grown ass man or woman and you're fending for yourself, then these are your choices that you're making. They're no one else's. And that was a very hard reality check for me, because I'm pretty sure it's not just a man thing. I'm sure it's a woman thing as well. But when your pride gets struck a little bit, it definitely brings you down a notch. And I've always tried to keep that pride, you know, somewhat subdued, because I never wanted to take over my life. Um, and I feel like it never really did, but also I never wanted to be proven right, I guess. A lot of people worry about being proven wrong, but I didn't want to be proven right. Like, I didn't want someone to come up and tell me, dude, the reason you're not successful is because of you. Inherently, I knew that, but again, the pride thing never really let me admit that to myself. And up until recently, of course, like I finally was able to step into the person I was trying to become. All the people that really supported me, my now wife, who at the time we were, in and so in 2017, when I joined the military, the reason I joined was because I guess that was my, if I had a start over point, that was kind of my start over point. So to that question, how did you start over? I guess that was my start over point, is I really needed to get out of where I was. I was back home in Michigan, and there wasn't anything there for me anymore. I had gotten out of college, dropped out for the second time, was doing really well, but got out of a relationship and kind of lost everything that I thought I had. And so I needed to get out of my situation. And by the grace of God, my wife, then girlfriend, then person who reached out to me via Facebook, um, hit me up, and the rest is history. So the reason, again, so the reason I joined the military, because I needed to leave and I was trying to acquire new skills. I needed to just do something completely different, because for most of my life, I avoided doing hard things. And I'll talk a little bit later about that one, but that's kind of like, I guess if you want to put that in context, that's kind of my start over point. Second question, what small steps made the biggest difference in the early days? So I was a wrestler in high school. I was always playing sports. Baseball was my big one. Didn't really play all the sports that I really wanted to. I played, I think, a year of basketball. Don't really remember much about it. I was pretty picked on, in middle school, going into high school, right until about my junior year. Not really sure why it all kind of stopped. Maybe they just got bored of picking on me for so many years. I don't say that as like a, oh, poor me. I'm just telling you the reality of my situation at the time. And so what made the biggest difference was during my athletic days, one thing that really helped pull me, and it didn't pull me all the way out, but it was something that kept me above water. And that was exercise, quite simply. I mean, it was exercise through the sport of wrestling. I was able to strengthen my body, which kind of hardened my mind a little bit. It definitely hardened my emotional intelligence. So I would say I was emotionally intelligent, maybe more than I would give myself credit for at the time. But more than anything, it stopped me from breaking down to the point where like I couldn't do things. Like it made me hard on the inside, which did affect a lot of my relationship, especially with my siblings. I was for lack of a better word, I was definitely not the best brother. I'm the oldest of five, so could have done a lot better than that. And so I think that's a pretty big contributor is I had to shut things off for a very long time because it was the only way I knew like that could kind of stop me from continuing to dwindle. So exercise and in the sport of wrestling, when you maintain weight, obviously fell in love with nutrition. I fell in love with cooking. My dad, was a chef for a very long time. Spent a lot of time in the food service business, hospitality. So I was very enamored with that and loved it. And it definitely helped me it moved me a step up. And I knew it wasn't going to be the thing that, brought me completely out of the woods and catapult me into, my wildest dreams, because at the time I still didn't really know. But it was the first really small step that got me from point A to point B. The other thing was, um, until I started going to college and really forming where like the reality of where I saw myself in the next 5, 10, 20 years, didn't really know. I knew I wanted to help people. So I help people right now in a variety of different ways. I do YouTube videos. I put out a lot of, it's all free uh, stuff that I've experienced, and hope that, viewing the videos find some sort of um, help with it, or some sort of experience you can take into your own life and then help you guys in any sort of way possible. Just trying to help one person at a time. And on the other side, I've been a production supervisor, been in leadership roles now since I got into the military. And I really enjoy being with a group of people and helping them to become better. And so, up until that point, I really didn't know. I flirted with a lot of different ideas about what I wanted to do. And I guess that's another tip is like if you're struggling and you're wondering, I wasted years, and maybe you went to college and finally realized after 4 years and a lot of college debt that, whatever it is that you're going to school for, call it psychology or sociology, whatever it is, that's not something that you want to do. And I think that happens to a lot of people. So, but at the very least, what I did was I tried a lot of stuff and found a lot of things I didn't like. And what I mean by don't like or didn't like was just I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. But I really enjoy what I'm doing right now in supervision and management and leading teams, being a servant leader on the floor, a people leader. That stuff just only helps me in scenarios like this where I'm trying to help one person on the other side of this camera become the best version of themselves. So, my biggest takeaway from that is in all the jobs I've had, I've tried to find the absolute best thing in that job. And could have been in my very first job, which was a newspaper boy, second job, which was working at Wendy's as a fry cook or whatever. So I just tried to do everything I could in every task that I was tasked with to just do it 110%, no matter what. And there were a lot of people during that time that were like, why are you trying so hard? Like, you're just taking out the garbage. But I wanted to be the best garbage taker outer, if that makes sense. I wanted to be the best um, private in the military. And I didn't really like go out of my way to try to outshine everyone. Really, I was just focused on myself. And what ended up happening in that scenario, like in the military, I was soldier of the cycle, and it was a surprise to me. Not like a surprise like I couldn't do it, But at the end of the cycle, when it was coming to an end, we're getting ready to, graduate, and all those ceremonies are coming up, to hear my name selected for Soldier of the Cycle and going in front of all the drill sergeants out of each of your platoons and beating all the other individuals in that platoon, in your, I forget what they call it, but there was like 5 or 4 platoons, and I was the one selected out of all of them. And I really do just think that was because I didn't focus on anyone else but myself. I was really dedicated, just trying to become the best person, be the best person that I could be. And mind you, I wasn't the fastest. I couldn't do the most push-ups. I couldn't do the most sit-ups. I wasn't the best at cadence. I wasn't the best at, um, shooting, range or anything like that. I think I was maybe a marksman. I was average. Quite seriously, I was average. But what wasn't average was my commitment to the craft. And so I took that with me to every job I did, and I gained a lot of skills from it. Soft skills, some hard skills, some technical skills, and I just carried that over to every job that I got. And once I got to the top of the where I could make it in the position I was working in at the time, I would go to Indeed or whatever job board and look for something that offered me, a better opportunity. And for probably 10 to 15 years, in every company I worked for, I started off entry level. And I was okay with that because, one, I was making more money than the previous job. I got to learn things from the ground up, understand the company, devote myself to that. And then while I was there, I just did what I always did. I focused on myself. I worked really hard. I communicated with my superiors, my supervisors, my managers, whoever, worked as a collaborator from a team standpoint, so on and so forth, and then just continued to rise to the ranks. And then again, look for my next opportunity. I will be 100% honest with you guys. There were some jobs where I probably wasn't the most qualified individual for that job, just being honest with you. But what separated me from the rest of the pack, rest of the resumes, rest of the, applicants, was my sheer determination and my ability to sell myself. That's going to be the number one takeaway that I want you guys to take away from this: is selling yourself to your employer, selling yourself to you, looking yourself in the mirror and being happy with the progress you're making, is all very important. And in today's day and age, there's not a whole lot of handshaking going on. There's not a whole lot of communication that's going. It's coming back. Excuse me. It's coming back a little bit, but it's definitely a lost art. So if you can communicate from one person to another, and you're an effective communicator, and you can get across a point, and you can listen well, and you can reiterate points, you're going to set yourself apart from the rest. Okay. So those are some of my key takeaways for some of the small steps that I was taking very early on that made a huge difference for me. Next question. If you were starting from scratch at 25, what would you do differently? I would say that I would start pursuing a lot of my dreams right away. What held me back, most of the time back in my 20s, even up into my early 30s, was I was so afraid of being judged, because I was being judged my whole life. Like I mentioned, I was picked on a lot. And instead of just saying, I don't really care what you think about me because my circumstances are my circumstances. My father only makes a certain amount of money. We can only afford certain things. And he devoted his life to give us everything he possibly could. And he put his life on the back burner. That's the sad reality of it, but that's the reality nonetheless. And so, um, I would just start doing everything that I wanted to do. I don't remember what YouTube was like back in the day. It was probably something I knew about but didn't really understand. But I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I feel like I have an entrepreneurial heart. I always wanted, the moment I started picking up any sort of weight or barbell or dumbbell, I just knew in my bones that I wanted to start a fitness center, a fitness facility, a wellness center. And that today is still one of my biggest goals. Working on trying to make that a reality, small steps at a time, while still focusing on my, um, main professional career. Which, to kind of iterate a point from early on in the video where I mentioned I was only making about $15,000 when I first started on my journey into, my professional career. Now I make about $80,000 a year, and that's with no college degree or anything like that. That's really pretty much just sheer determination and willpower, forcing myself into opportunities and making the most of them. So you don't really need to be the smartest person in the room. You don't need to be the most talented person in the room. You just need to work your ass off for what you want. And so that's definitely what I would have um, focused on and done differently early on in my 20s as I was coming out of high school. I just flat out was a quitter back then, like I would do something for a little bit, and then the moment that things got hard, the moment that I felt like I was being judged for what I was doing, I would just give up and cower away, because I wasn't the man I am today. I was very small coming out of high school. Like I said, highly picked on, moles all over my face. I was scrawny, not really too great in shape, outside of like just when I started wrestling, I finally kind of got myself into a much better physical peak physical shape. It wasn't my peak, but you know what I mean? I was much better physical shape. And I think maybe that just had a lot to do with like people left me alone, not because they were scared of me, but they just saw, it was just different. So that's like the main thing that I would have done differently, is just focus on not listening to the noise, and then just embarking on the dreams and aspirations that I had at the time, that I was just too afraid or too worried about what people would think, and just not doing it. So I would have definitely just done that right out the gate. Another thing is I would pursue the hard things. Like I just mentioned, the moment things got hard for me, I would back up. I would start to, quietly quit. For those of you that don't understand what quiet quitting is, it's like you quit in silence. You sort of just disappear. You start acting small. You start to just separate yourself from what you were doing. So that's something that is pretty prevalent in today's society, and I think it has a lot to do with just the way the last 5 to 10 years kind of happened. We obviously had the COVID year in 2020, and things got shut down, and the face-to-face interactions and all that stuff. And then, but just parents nowadays, just not that they don't probably know the value in some of this stuff. Um, but I think it's encouraged. It's like, oh, that's too hard for you. Why don't you just go sit down, have a donut, maybe grab a soda. My dad did a lot to try to force us, and he didn't like literally force us, but he tried to push us into awkward situations very early on, because he understood that if you're in those situations, um, and you get past them, you grow from it. When I look back on it now, in my early 20s, mid 20s into my 30s, I definitely had some animosity towards my dad, for this reason. I felt like he could have done a lot more to help himself, and if he would have embarked on a journey to help himself, he then in turn could have helped us maybe enter the real world with a little bit more of an understanding, or like some skills. Like when I first met my now wife and we moved in together, my credit score was 400. All right. And in the early 20s, when my dad was having issues and we needed to keep the bills running, he put bills in my name, and they of course defaulted, because I'm sure his were defaulted. And so my credit score was absolute trash. And so like when she found out what my credit score was, and she's like, oh, well, like, why is it so low? And I started looking into like, why is it so low? Like I knew some of that stuff was happening, but I didn't quite understand it. So we didn't really get taught a lot of the most important things about what real life is going to bring. And so like you're talking about being a 25-year-old going into your 30s, not really understanding what being adult really is. That's a little bit of a side tangent on what the topic of the video is, but just kind of throwing it out there as context for you guys, because you guys might be in a similar situation. It might not be exactly as I'm outlining it for you, but take these examples and fit them into your own life and put that puzzle together for yourself. As much as I wanted to sit down and say, my dad really screwed me, and again, facts are facts. I certainly could have had a lot better opportunity growing up to come out of my teenage years, going into my early 20s in a lot better position. But the one thing that I recognized, in my around my 30s, 31, 32 years old, was finally realized that my dad sacrificed his life to give as much as he possibly could to us. And he could only do so much. The most important skill that he had, that he passed on to me, that I feel, and to most of my siblings, quite honestly, because we've all had our little ups and downs throughout life and challenges, but it's resilience. It's the grittiness. It's the will to keep on going on. It's that heart. That's the kind of stuff that you can't really teach people. You can kind of teach it. You can say, here's what it means to be resilient. But until you've experienced real life and it's just constantly smacked you back and forth, until you've fallen down so many times where you feel like you want to quit, you don't really know what it's like. And I'm not sitting here saying like I've had the worst life in the world, because I most certainly have not. I keep myself pretty leveled when it comes to that stuff. I know there's a lot of people out there who are in much worse positions than me, but I definitely, it's been a struggle for me. And my biggest skill is that resilience and that determination, that no matter how many times I fall, no matter how many times I fail, no matter how many times someone tells me no, no matter how many times someone wants to accuse me of being a fake guru or a wannabe or whatever the case someone wants to say about me, now I can finally confidently say that that stuff just doesn't bother me anymore, because I know my purpose. I know what God put me on this earth to do. And that's to help one person change their lives the way that I've been able to change my life. And it might happen at 20. It could happen at 25. Excuse me. It could happen at 30. Maybe it's 35, maybe it's 40, maybe it's 45, 50, whatever. The age doesn't matter. As long as you begin to take the steps to course correct and you actually start putting time into everything that we've just talked about, the things that are going to make a huge difference in your life, which I firmly believe are physical, mental, and spiritual health. Get out there, walk, exercise, eat nutritious meals. 80 to 85% of the time, if you eat good food, your body will be much better. Your mind will be much better for it. And then spiritually, um, God has been calling me for a very long time, and I had constantly been shutting the door on him. I don't have a lot of regrets in my life because it has led me to this position, but it's one that I wish I would have opened my mind to a lot earlier on, because he's been trying to help me for a very long time. He's been trying to walk with me. He's been trying to, and he did open a lot of doors, some to which I walked through, some to which I completely ignored. And you never know when it's when you talk about that stuff, you never really know or recognize when that stuff happens. Sometimes you just get a feeling. And I would say that I got a lot of those feelings, but I did not listen to them. And I wish I had. But it's different. The moment I realized the error of the ways that I have been living, when I realized that God has been calling me to be the person I am now for a very long time, I take it very seriously now. And so I hope you guys do too. So this person, again, whoever you are, starting over at 25, you've wasted some years. How do you rebuild your life? Here's some examples of some of the experiences that I've had, how I've been able to just kind of course correct and fix my life. Again, it's not going to happen overnight. It might not happen in a year, it might not happen in 2 years, but that's okay, right? There's in society, there's a I want it now mentality. It's that quick fix. It's that I want to lose 20 pounds and I want to do it tomorrow. And so what people quit and they give up on themselves in such a short amount of time. And you forget how much progress you can make in a year or 2 years or 5 years or a decade. And if you're 25 or if you're in your early 20s or even if you're in your 30s, you have so much time left to make a difference, not just in your life, but in everyone's life. Find something that it's hard to just say, like, find your passion, because that's so, it's so obtuse, it's so generic. But there's some validity to that. What do you love to do? What is something that you could just sit at a round table and just completely lose yourself, not even realize an hour, 2 hours have gone past, and you just sit here talking about exercise and fitness. Maybe it's chess, maybe it's mathematics, maybe it's history. I just urge you guys to pursue that. Just give it a shot. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, but at least you'll know. And that's how I've lived my life, is I've used myself as the testing dummy. And I encourage you guys to do the same. So For this person, it's not easy. It's going to be challenging, but you have a lot of time left. If you are 25 and you feel like all this, college, you don't have a degree you're proud of, and you feel like you've wasted the last 7 years of your life, you have so much more opportunity to get it right. You just have to start now. And that was my biggest takeaway from a little bit earlier is don't be afraid to just put yourself out there and just give it a go, man. Whatever your dreams are, pursue them with everything you got and be gritty, be determined. Don't give up on yourself. Find people around you that support you. I just absolutely could not do this. I wouldn't be where I am today without my wife, my children, my grandma, who's just been supporting me my entire life, where most people just wouldn't. Find a small group of people that can support you in that way and that you can support, and it will take you very far. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to try to do one of these a week. I'm kind of in the middle of getting used to a new job um, that I'm really enjoying. It's got me on first shift now instead of second shift. It's freed up a lot of my time that I can now devote to doing a lot of this stuff, and then continuing to. I always was working on that stuff, but now I have more time to devote to it. So I hope that in the next 5 years, I can confidently say in front of the camera that I have opened up a wellness center, and you guys will be able to go and check that out. Maybe not the physical location, but you'll be able to see like he did it. And I hope it's an inspiration to you guys, and because it's going to be an inspiration to myself. So again, thanks for watching. Hope this helps. Drop a comment down below. Where are you at? Are you in your 20s? Are you in your 30s? Do you feel like you've wasted some time? And if you feel like that, you let me know what you're doing to fix it. I'd love to bounce ideas off each other, help you guys figure out where you're going, because this channel is all about support. So thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.